Are you a burnt out overachiever buried in responsibilities? Do you miss laughing with your friends, just laughing from the gut? Do you feel like life's passing you by? If you've been wishing for some kind of shift, you're in the right place. Welcome to 52 Weeks of Hope, the show where we take you off the hamster wheel by ditching your to-do list for the to-don't list. This is where you get to learn how to make that lonely ache vanish, learn self-compassion techniques, and to give yourself grace. I'm Lauren Abrams, and I get to help you feel that magic again since going through my own dark night of the soul. So you can learn from my experience and the mentors and experts I meet along the way. And today we're talking to author, inspirational leader, and your intuitive advocate, Kim Chestney. Are you ready to stop negative spiraling and pause, take a deep breath, and learn all the right answers for your life right now? You're in for a treat as you get to learn about the part of you that really knows everything. Hear from Kim, who helps you tap into your intuition, explains why and how intuition works, and help you live in your truth and in your joy. The founder of Intuition Lab and so much more. Welcome to 52 Weeks of Hope, Kim.
Thank you for having me, Lauren. I'm so excited to be here and talk about all this great stuff with you today.
Yeah, and your new book is out. Wait, I'm holding it up for anybody who's looking. The
Yay!
illumination code's out.
Woo!
The 7 keys to unlock your quantum intelligence. And she's also written Radical Intuition, which we were talking before. I'm like, that's the best title ever, Radical Intuition. That was her second book. And the illumination code, I told her every time I look at this book, I got it a couple of months ago. It makes me so happy. The book just came out. I got an advance copy and it just made me happy. And all the answers are within if we pause and breathe and know how to look for them. So, okay, what's the secret, Kim? Because I was like, because at first I was a little intimidated, like, okay, this is for brainiacs and everything. And this is such an accessible book. And there's all these little things you can do. And worksheet sounds like work or homework. So I don't want to call it that. They're fun. They're like, look for this sign and look for that. They're actually super fun little magic things you can do.
Exploration.
Yeah, exploration.
Yes.
That's a better word.
Yes, you hit the nail on the head. I wanted to, my goal with this book was to take some of those really complicated theories and ideas of modern day science and physics and boil it down into something that actually affects our lives so that we can understand it in a very, sort of commonplace way and how it affects the way we go about the very little things in our lives, as well as the deep, profound spiritual things. So I filled it up with activities and all kinds of ways that we can practice and experience the magic ourselves.
Yeah, I mean, it's everything from like noticing your dreams and red light, green light. You have all these, well, red light, green light sounds fun too, because it reminds you of being a kid and red
Right.
light, green light. I know that's not what you meant there, but
But I
there's
love
all
that.
these
It's
fun
just like
things.
that.
It is just like that.
Yeah.
There were all these like really fun things in here. And it's not because, wait, what did I write down? Because I didn't want to forget I was like, oh, esoteric. I was like, is this esoteric or for brainiacs? And I was like, no, it isn't. This is like, it's your answers are within. And you've been doing this for 20 years at least. I mean, it seems like, yeah, right?
Yeah, it's been a real windy journey. My first book came out in 2004, and then I also got into the arts and culture and technology, and at that time in my day job. But all my worlds kind of came together through that pathway when I started working with people in tech and leadership and business who were so interested in intuition. And suddenly I started
Okay,
to,
so wait, why were they
yeah,
working with you? How did you get into like, how did intuition become your
yeah,
field? Because that's an interesting
yeah.
I
It's
wanna hear. We
okay.
wanna hear.
I'll tell you because it's crazy, and I never would have imagined that was going to be my pathway. Like another lesson, you follow your intuition; it takes you where you need to be, because
Mhm.
you can never plan these things out rationally,
Yeah.
right? I was an artist. One of the very natural expressions of intuition are arts and creativity, and so I was naturally very creative. So I got into the arts, and eventually became a graphic designer, and then eventually started to work for a tech council, and then eventually started to work in the creative industries, and then I started working with creative technology companies. So then we start getting into companies like Facebook, like gaming companies, all these innovation companies, design companies, and talking with these really smart people with PhDs who are like just blowing like innovation out of the water on a global scale, start talking to me about intuition and how it's become so important when you're creating business and building new products and getting into this space where you're leading the way. Because with what our intuition does is it teaches us to follow ourselves, that inner wisdom, that inner light, instead of going out there and following the world, copying other people, taking other people's path. So it really is the heart of ingenuity and inspiration and all these new things. So intuition really became on so many levels the holy grail. And I think that applies, not only to our spirituality and our personal growth, but everything that we actually do in the world. People like Einstein, Steve Jobs, biggest advocates of intuition, let alone the mystics and all of the saints and psychics in history. Like all these extraordinary people realized how powerful intuition was. And that sort of set me on the path to write Radical Intuition. And then ultimately this book that we're dealing with today, the Illumination Code, where we talk about how it all works and how it's actually possible.
Yeah. So, okay, let's get into it. How does it work? And how does somebody listening, they, a question I ask a lot of times is people know I'm not doing what I'm meant to do, what I'm called here to do. And maybe they're unsure what it is, or they're afraid to take that leap. Those are the two things usually. And,
Absolutely.
they're grabbing all these shining objects, or they're buying all these courses online, they're half finished or this or that. And
Mhm.
it's not the answer, and so I'm gonna let you take it from there.
Well, I mean, you just said it. I mean, our true guru is within us. Our intuition is our true teacher, and that's the teacher we've all been looking for. And no matter what books we're reading or courses we're taking or whatever path we're going for, we're ultimately looking for that true inner teacher that other people can guide us to. And, talking about, you really hit the nail on the head with this idea of the core motivation behind a lot of us is understanding our purpose and our path and why are we here? What are we doing here? What are we meant to bring into this world by existing? And our intuition holds the keys to that answer, because it is the part of us that knows everything. It's the deeper part of ourself, the higher part of ourself that has access to all the information and wisdom in the world, and really guides us from that subtle place of knowing and feeling and peace and power. With the Illumination Code, what I set out to do after I wrote my last book, Radical Intuition, people started to experience these magical things. So when you tune into your intuition, like the magic happens. You reach
Yeah.
out to the universe comes out, there's synchronicity, signs, coincidences, things you shouldn't be able to know. And you start to realize that, whoa, something is really happening here. It's not just something that we're imagining. There's something very real happening. So people kept coming to me and like, how does it actually work? Like, how is it possible that I could know something that my partner's going to say right before it comes out of their mouth? Or how is it possible that I'm thinking of my friend right before they call me on the phone? Or, the millions of different ways that this sort of our interconnection with life can manifest. And so I came across the work of Dr. Urban Laszlo and his book, Science in the Akashic Field, a while back. And it really changed the way that I understood reality and really filled in a lot of the gaps with intuition. Because
How
a lot of,
so?
well,
Yeah.
so it's really a great question because, in the old days, anything with intuition we would write off as occult or supernatural or scary because we didn't understand how it works. Before the quantum revolution, ideas like telepathy and precognition and things like that were spooky. And how could it possibly be? It's impossible, right? These were impossible things. But the quantum revolution came around, and now all of the things that contemporary physics, these theories that are becoming reality with the unified fields and concepts like entanglement and spooky action at a distance, all of these things are saying, oh, wait, we're starting to actually have an explanation for these things in science. So we see mysticism and science finally coming together with this idea of a non-local field, which is a
Okay.
field of
You just used a couple words that I don't even know what they mean.
okay,
So,
which ones? The
uh,
entanglement.
well, okay. How did you use entanglement? But there were a couple others also.
One of the things I talk about in the book is that every one of the words that we have for supernatural things that might be related to intuition, which even if it's things like empathy, things like gut feelings, even precognition, knowing the future, or telepathy, we reading each other's minds, those kinds of things that we hear about, we've all probably had little experiences throughout our lives of these things, but we kind of maybe don't acknowledge them or really fully, understand why they happen. So science now has really equivalent words for those things. And entanglement is a concept where there's two two sort of particles that, when they're separated, you can put them on opposite ends of the world and they still can communicate with each other, even though they're nowhere near each other in space time. So, really extrapolating out concepts like that show how we are entangled with each other. And there is, concepts of our ability to reach each other and touch each other no matter where we are, whether we're right next to each other or where we're far away. And that's where how intuition comes into play, because it doesn't matter how far away from each other are. We have these intuitive experiences with other people that can be really magical and prove to us this deep nature of life.
I'm going to probably say this wrong, but there's a thing where like a violin strings can start playing with certain vibrational frequencies. Like it can feel, do you know what I'm talking about? Okay. Yeah, of course you do. Like it's proof of like, anyway. So
Yeah,
I
what's
don't
this?
know.
Yeah, the string theory is really
Yeah.
it's wrapped up in all this, and I talk about this in one of the later chapters in the book, because we're living in a world of vibration all around us. We think we look at these little objects that we have like sitting on our desk or that we're holding in our hands, and we think they're solid, but they're not.
Yeah. Right.
Right? They're actually made of vibrating.
Whirling, yeah, electrons and all of that. Yeah.
Yeah. So our intuition is able, really underneath all that though, under the vibration is everything we've learned that the universe is actually built of information. Underneath all of that vibration, all of that, those objects, particles, is actually codes of information. So that's why intuition is so important, because it's basically showing us that this world is a world of consciousness, right? Everything is infused with consciousness. So that means our intuition is able to read and connect each other and everything. So it all comes back to this place of consciousness and interconnectedness.
So when we feel drawn to a person, you're in a room, you don't know anyone, and there's one person you're just drawn to, just trust that gut. Or when my kids were little, we had a code word. I said, if there's somebody that's creepy, no explanation, we're gone. We had a code
Yes,
word for that. It's you
perfect.
trust your gut. There's no question. We're gone. They used to
Absolutely.
tease me. It was, but we had a code word and we're gone. It's
Yeah.
because you can trust because kids know, and I do
Mhm.
too. And like we're gone. Yeah. Um,
Absolutely. It's in, and even Oprah talks about how, she did shows on how important it was. So all these stories of people, intuition saved people's lives. Because,
Yeah, yeah, I
right?
do, I know exactly what you're talking about. Or where someone didn't listen and
Yes.
like some of that stuff comes across really strong. You're like, "Oh, I'm probably wrong," especially when it's for someone else, but you're not paying attention for yourself.
Right. Right. Because,
Yeah,
remember, a part of you knows
conditioning.
everything, right? A part of you
Yeah,
knows there's that person is up to something shady, even if, they're not presenting with any of that information. So when we
yeah.
start to listen to those subtle information cues that we're picking up, it can be invaluable and really help us out, like literally by saving our lives.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, so that person that they're not doing what they're called here to do, how do they get clear or and take feel have the faith to take that leap?
Yeah, so I think it really comes down to what you mentioned when we first started talking about getting into that pause and that stillness, because that's where we find our intuition. So after we slow down, we get out of the sort of busy mind phase, because when we're really busy and going, we can't hear our intuition. We get into this sort of the thinking mindset. So we slow down, open up some space, go for that walk. You notice big ideas drop in usually when you're in the shower or even driving in your car, right? Because you've
Uh,
opened up that space for your intuition to drop in. So first thing is really slowing down and really learning to listen and paying attention to those thoughts and ideas and feelings that just come to you out of nowhere. That's the signature of your intuition. You don't really think them up. They just kind of drop in and it's like, "Oh, maybe I should try this, or maybe I should do something new, or maybe I should connect with this person." So your intuition will give you these little breadcrumbs to get you to that next best step forward. But the key is to start to learn to listen and recognize that and trust it.
yeah, I love that. I talk about one of the tools being when you take a walk, don't take a device. I know it's hard,
Mhm. Yes.
but take that walk and go a different direction than usual, or even try something
Yep.
different that way. Okay, so here you get this download. Then how do you trust it? How does somebody who's not sure because they're used to listening to somebody else or they're worried what people will think,
Uh-huh.
that kind
Yes.
of thing?
Yes, and that's the big thing, is making that shift from learning to trust yourself and follow yourself voice versus listening to your conditioning and what everybody else is doing and what everybody else thinks. And that's a big tension for a lot of us as we go through life. So the more we start to trust ourselves, And the more that our intuition starts to come through for us, and then the more we're going to be able to trust ourselves in the future. So to get started and to break the sort of cycle of self-doubt, we really have to start taking some chances and taking some risks with our intuition and trusting ourselves. And in Radical Intuition, my last book, I have a whole big list of uh, differences between intuition and the other voices in our head so that we can start to say, yeah, okay, this is definitely my intuition. Right. So the radical intuition is all about teaching you to recognize your intuition and so you can start to trust it. Right. Because the first thing you have to do is know, yes, I'm actually following my intuition. I'm not like going down some crazy path. Right. And just you have to, this is real. And then so the once it starts to come through for you and you feel what intuition feels like, it gets easier to trust it because you can recognize how it feels as opposed to your small self, your critical self, the voice of other people that's baked into your minds, right? So there's a lot of voices in our head. We have to tune in to that one true voice, which is our intuition.
Okay. And in the illumination code, you go through the 7 keys to unlock your quantum intelligence. Is it important to go through them in order? Because I'm going to tell you right now, there were certain things I felt way more called to, and I went straight to the more woo woo stuff, so to speak, that I think is was way cooler. Number 6, it was impossible things, of course. I went straight to impossible things.
That's a good one.
'Cause
I don't blame
yeah,
you.
yeah. I was like, yeah, that one caught me. I was like, okay, I want to read that one first. I mean, Mind Matrix is cool, but I want impossible things first. That was what I wanted to read first. I went to that. So
So you can do it in any order, right? So there's nothing
yeah,
wrong with using your
yeah,
intuition. I'm always a fan of using your intuition. If you're called to go to that place first, by all means do that. I set it up in the order that I did to kind of, explain things one by one so that you sort of understand how everything works. So some of the things in the impossible things section, you might want to go back now and
yeah.
read like so the mind matrix is about the akashic field and how all of that information is actually stored. So it doesn't matter how you do it, the information's all there in the book. As long as you're getting out of what your intuition wants you to get out of
Yeah, it's very fun, you guys. Definitely very fun. And do you want to explain the Akashic Records and how it's accessible to all of us? You don't need somebody else to read your field because
it.
I think that is just always very fun. That you
Yes.
don't need an expert, you don't need a coach, you don't need someone else,
Yes,
and
and
how
I
it works.
really love this modern day idea of the Akashic records. So this idea was really reinforced by Irvin Laszlo in the book I was talking about with his concept of the unified field, which I've always said for years when I was doing this work is that, the Akashic records aren't an actual library, right? So the old school and like spiritualism is like you go into the hall of records and you open the books and but it's really just that sort of idea of the Akashic records was levitated back during a time before we understood what computers were or even quantum physics at all. So they didn't have an idea of the things that we understand now, like having a hard drive or like having cloud storage. Those kind of metaphors weren't in our repertoire. The closest thing you could get to back then was a book. So it became an Akashic record in a book. But it's not about books. It's about storage of information. And really, if you look at all of the universe, there's not any such thing as time now. We understand that's a relative concept. And so the Akashic record is really just the storage, the memory of the universe where everything that's ever happened, will happen, is happening right now. All of that information is stored. And it's stored in this field around us called the non local field, the unified field, the intuition field, the quantum field. There's so many different words for it. But it's basically this field of information and wisdom that our intuition has access to. And every single person is hardwired into it because we're part of it. So it really is this beautiful connective energy that we can all tap into to better understand ourselves and to understand this magical universe that we live in.
Yeah, and I love how you talk about your point of well, I should probably ask it instead of saying what I discovered in researching you that you want people to tap into the joy and the wonder how wonderful the world is from reading this book, which is
Mm.
amazing because everyone's you can feel the energy and there's a lot of negative energy in the world, but whatever you focus on grows. And the fact that we have access to all of this. So how do we access these records? Because
So
everyone's probably listening to you going, "Well, I want that."
Yeah. Well, there's some
Yeah.
exercises in the
Yeah, I
book.
was gonna be like, "Get the book." It's very cool.
Um,
But
but it really is about just really going within. It's redirecting our attention from the outer to the inner, even though that's sort of a relative concept in itself as well. But really looking to that deep dimension within us for that truth through our intuition, and you can do that through those sort of no mind portals of spaciousness meditation. Really, there's sometimes it happens people have intuitive experiences in their sleep or waking half sleep. It's really about getting our mind out of the way. That's the key thing, is our thinking mind has just sort of dominated everything. We're at this place where it's just totally suppressed the intuitive mind. It's time now to give the intuitive mind a voice and to tap into that energy and rebalance, because we're just out of balance. The thinking mind's great. We really need to be smart and intelligent and rational and all of that stuff. But we need to start allowing our intuitive mind to really be the key to understanding our world, because we're meant to think with both sides of our brain.
yeah, no, that's a good point. It's hard to get those in balance. So, and to think, how do we do that? How do you keep, I mean, that creative side going if you're always in the logical, or vice versa?
Yeah, I mean, I really think it's just, there's intentional practices that you can do really to stay in your creative zone, to stay in the intuitive zone, doing new things, getting outside your comfort zone is huge. No matter what it is you're doing, trying new things that opens up those neural pathways, keeps you feeling alive, keeps those intuitive energies flowing. Because really, intuition is about bringing all of that good energy from within us out into the world. It is a manifestation process, right? First, we listen to it, we are guided by it, but what does it do? It guides us to do good things for ourselves, for each other, for this world. Ultimately, it's our best friend. It helps us to. It leads us to our own self actualization, which is part of the self actualization and expansion of humanity, of the universe itself. So we're participating in this beautiful expansion and manifestation of energy. And when we follow our intuition, we manifest the best, highest form of that energy that we can possibly want.
I love all of that. I mean, that made me vibrate a higher frequency right there. Yeah. Okay. So, somebody reading this book, what do you hope for people to get out of this? Because they're going to want to get this. And you wrote this, I guess, to for them to hopefully understand how intuition works.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing I want this book to bring to people is the rediscovery of the magic of life. And that's something that, we live in this material world and we think we've got everything figured out. But what intuition teaches us is there is a world of magic and wonder behind, within, around all of this, that it's just waiting to be rediscovered and harnessed and communed with. So this book is an opportunity to feel the magic for yourself. Don't just read about it. Like, I don't write books to just tell you things. I write my books so that you can go out and feel it and experience it and live that yourself and really participate in that deep dimension of reality and the deeper part of life. And it really, to me, in my own journey, right? It's brought me to that place of being able to find magic in just the most simple everyday things. And I hope that for other people. And in the process, this expands our mind and really our understanding of reality itself.
But yeah, it's a lot more than just noticing the purple flowers when you're walking.
Yes, there's
It
messages and there's signs and there's
yeah.
communication, and everything is meaningful in a very powerful way that we miss so often. And if we learn to look at for those little nudges and those little moments where life drops in for us, that we can find that life is always communicating with us. It's always guiding us, and we're supported by this sort of loving embrace of the universe at all times.
Yeah, it's so true, and this is why it made me so happy to pick up your book, because it's one more time we have all our answers, and I have to write a talk, and I have papers everywhere, I have stuff everywhere. It's only a 12-minute talk, and I have enough for a 16-hour talk. And I was like, how am I gonna? And I closed my eyes and put my fingers on the keyboard, and I just let it write.
Mm,
'Cause I have the
mm.
answer. And
Yes,
and that's because I picked up your book and I thought, and I looked and I read some of it, and I was like, "I know how to do this."
I love it. That's a great
And
story.
that's how I just let it just download and just I'm just to be of service anyway
Yes.
and let it go.
Yeah, intuition
Right?
is the easiest thing. That's the thing.
It is.
All you have to do is open up and receive it, right? That's the
Yeah.
thing is you just have to open up and receive it. It does the work for you. It's not like thinking where you got to go study and figure out formulas and, pros and cons and stuff. With intuition, the answers come, right? The solutions flow, the energy flows if you open up and accept it.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so what's the hardest challenge you've ever gone through and how did you get through it?
Oh, the hardest challenge I've ever well, I mean, I think one of the for me, and actually it does relate to intuition. The hardest thing that ever happened to me was when I lost my sister, very young. She was 25 years old and she died unexpectedly, and we were very close. So it was very difficult for me to get through that. And I was young at the time, but I'll tell you what, if there's anything, and I do write about this in this experience a little bit in the book, is that experience taught me a lot about the continuous nature of life. And my sister was with us after she left and gave us many, many signs, not just me, but many people in my family that were undeniable. So she really actually ended up informing a lot of this book. I think so. Working beyond across the multiverse with my sister and from wherever she is really showed me what was possible. She made things appear and disappear. She moved things around. She gave things to my friends. Like crazy stuff that I like, how could this ever happen? And it happened again and again and again. So for me, it was something that was very inspiring and set me on the pursuit to understand how these things are possible. And with quantum physics, all of it is possible. So that was really exciting to get validation from really smart scientists that this isn't just woo woo stuff anymore, that there's a real beautiful continuum of life that we're just participating in a little moment of it here in this reality.
Yeah, we're a blink on the
Yep.
on all of it. Yeah, I love that. And when there's all these shiny objects, how do you stay focused?
I just follow go where my intuition leads me. I've gotten to the point in my life where I just feel like, for the most part, I'm in the flow and I'll get an idea and I just go with it. I One of my things the tips I always give people is when you have the idea, make sure you act on it because intuition will flow through. And if you don't either act on it or make a note about it to act on it later, it'll just flow and it'll be gone. So really harnessing that energy when it comes to you is important. So I try to stay in the flow, act in the flow, live in the flow, and I find that that's really helpful. And just trusting that even if things aren't going the way I think they should be, because life is tricky and hard, and it's never something that we expect it to be fully. So really just trusting that wherever my intuition leads me next is the right way, even if it doesn't feel like the right way. But living in that trust with life has become so valuable for me.
Ah, yeah, I love that. Do you have a message of hope you want to give?
Yes, 100% is, no matter how tough life gets and the challenges that we face and hard in this world that we live in, a world that's on fire right now, that within all of us there's a connectivity and a unity that is bringing us together and expanding us together, and that there is that hope within us if we just look within us and start trusting, all of us trusting ourselves and trusting in that truth. It will lead us together and lead us to happiness and well-being and all the things that we really want in life.
Oh, that's a great message of hope. I love that. Is there anything else that I didn't ask you that we're gonna be done and you're gonna be like, Lauren didn't ask me this?
I don't think so. I mean, I think it's been great talking about all this stuff. And the book is, anyone can read it. Doesn't matter if you've ever done any intuition work before or not. It's written for everybody.
I love that. And you guys, you have to go onto Kim's website. It is so much fun. There's a plethora of information. There's a pick a card like it there is so much stuff that's fun that you'll love it. I have all of her links and everything in the show notes on the website, everywhere else, including for her book. Thank you so
Yay!
much for being a guest today. This was so great.
Thank you for having me. This is
Yeah.
fantastic.
I know, I know. I'm gonna add radical pause into
Yes,
my title now.
I love it.
Yay. Yeah, me too. I hope you enjoyed this week's episode and take with you Kim's messages of an open mind, staying in the flow, and connection. Such great messages to take into your week ahead. Be sure to tune in next week for another empowering episode. It's all about how to live authentically, abundantly, and how to simply feel better. And it's also about embracing lessons and growth from your life's journey. That's next week. And be sure to share the episode with your friends and to rate and review the podcast so more people feel less alone in the overwhelm, and to remember the pause. Answers emerge in the pause, and instead of adding to your to-do list, how about a to-don't list? I really enjoyed this episode. If you did too, send me a note. Even if you didn't, send me a note and let me know what you're grateful for. Gratitude raises our vibrational frequency, and I thought it'd be really fun to collectively do that. We're meeting once a month for an accountability meetup. We're meeting on Zoom, and it's been really great just to stay accountable to each other. Let me know if you want to join us. So far, it's been a group of people who are starting podcasts. Some are just in the beginning stages, some are just thinking about it. And it's been really great just to discuss the best ways to do that. But you can be wanting to start a book, wanting to start dating. It could be anything. It's about staying accountable. And it's a really safe environment to do that and to have an accountability partner. Also, if you want to rate and review and you don't know how to rate and review the podcast, there's a link on the website at 52weeksofhope.com. I just wanted to say that. And I know I said this last week, but there's a show I've been binge listening to, and he's so funny. Even if this is the worst podcast you've ever heard, please just go and rate and review it. Anyway, so until next week, I'm Lauren Abrams. Thanks for listening.